2 weeks ago, on July 18th, I joined United We Dream in Miramar, Florida, as part of a protest against an ice processing facility there. What had been going on there is they had families, children, elderly people waiting in the sun 10 or more hours a day, going into this building not knowing if they were going to be deported, taken. Children aren't allowed in there, so there were parents going in there, and the children going in there didn't know if their parents were coming out. So there had been this group, the Circle of Protection, who had started gathering every Wednesday right across the street, offering simple things like water. And it grew, but the problem is this facility was awful, the way they were treating these people. So when I was down there with United We Dream, we blocked the intersection leading into this facility, effectively shutting it down. It was an intense experience for me. One of the problems is pretty much all of the worst things that have happened to me in my life have happened to me in Florida. I experienced some rather extreme abuse, so much so that just like the smell of Florida was enough to set my teeth on edge. My family had betrayed me in Florida. While I was there, blocking that intersection in the road, my hands, both hands shoved into these PVC pipes, I was pretty vulnerable. We were sitting in the middle of the road. But something kind of happened there in that I had this new family around me that wasn't going to let anything bad happen. There were people who quite literally laid in front of cars to stop them from getting to us. And that was amazing. It changed the way I feel about Florida. That smell suddenly didn't smell like betrayal and war. It smelled like family. It smelled like a love and protection that I had not felt there before. And when we were linked up, we were waiting there a while. It was about a total of 6 hours. They brought over tents. We had people there giving us water. A couple people helped me quite often pushing my glasses back up because I had opted for some glasses, and with the expectation that there may be certain things like pepper spray involved. Fortunately, that didn't happen, but as a small side tip, you don't want to be wearing contacts while you're pepper sprayed. It's a bad scene. But eventually, the law enforcement was quite annoyed. Some estimates range from about 80 law enforcement officers at the scene. They busted out a mobile command center. There were SWAT there. It was a big deal. Eventually, they ordered everybody else back. The protesters there were 17 of us linked up in two semicircles blocking the intersection. When it came time, they told everyone else to pull back. They removed the tents that were keeping the sun off of us. And we were all sitting in chairs, and they eventually took the chairs that were between our arms holding the pipes up, thinking that we'd grow tired and give up. And I think they also wanted to kind of sweat us out. It didn't work out like that because eventually it started raining. So we're sitting in the rain, and when the rain started to die, they came in, the cops came in and arrested us. And in that experience, there were a couple white people in the group, but it was predominantly people of color. And I had someone next to me, Gabriel, a member of the Sigma Lambda Beta International Incorporated. It's a predominantly Latino fraternity with a passion for activism. He had been with me in Tornillo, Texas. He was right next to me now. Gabriel was treated far differently from me by law enforcement. I had an officer right behind me the whole time, was like, okay, I'm lowering your head because I do not want to injure you. And Gabriel was like slammed to the ground. It's one of the reasons why I went, because I know that because I am white, law enforcement is going to treat me better. Now, granted, they still didn't treat me great. Those little zip cuffs, those are awful. While I'm sitting in the back of this police car zip cuffed, they had the model of car comes with heated seats apparently, and they turn those on when you're sitting back there, zip cuffed. And so I went to jail, and while I was there, it felt mostly boring and uncomfortable. And, I knew while I was in there, there was a team on the outside. We had, who was trying to get me out. They had, videos they sent out that we had recorded before all this, that they were sending out to tell people, hey, help us pay for the bail money. We went, we went through the whole process. I ended up getting transferred to another jail, which was a little weird. But, I got out, and when I was out, I still felt fine. We all had dinner. The next day, we had one more little meeting just to talk about how everything went down, and then we all parted ways. Several of us flew home. I got delayed. Was still doing fine. It wasn't until I got home. When I got home that I kind of started to come apart at the seams. While I was in it, I felt fine. But it's in that quiet moment after the chaos where I started waking up. And even though I never actually slept in the jail, every time I would wake up at home, I feel like I was back in jail, or like that the cops were going to bust down the door. Part of it is because of the trauma I faced as a child. One, the people beating the crap out of me as a kid were connected to law enforcement. My mother's boyfriend was an ex-cop who got fired for trying to solicit a blowjob during a traffic stop. Classy guy. And my mother herself was trying to become a police officer. Another thing that played into it was part of the abuse I suffered as a child. There was torture. A lot of it was stress positions, being restricted and not being able to move. One incident in particular, my brother and I were made to kneel on our hands and knees on carpet. Now that doesn't sound that bad until you do it for a couple hours. It's actually like a form of torture used in certain places. They usually lay down rice, but if you do it on a carpet long enough, you get the same effect. It starts digging into your skin. And so this kind of brought up a lot. And so I've had to take a bit of a break from doing the work I've been doing to try and recover from this. but I'm not going to stop. I really can't stop. There's too much work to be done, and while there are a lot of people out there fighting this fight, there aren't enough. If there were enough people out there fighting right now, we wouldn't be having children being tortured and abused in ICE detention. If there were enough people to surround those buildings 200 bodies deep, they would be out by now. So until we reach that point, I have to keep fighting. I went into this experience knowing I had trauma. And I have been doing a lot of reading and trying to figure out how to approach my activism sustainably. Because this movement doesn't need martyrs. It needs an army. So we need everybody showing up. So there's these 2 books I've read recently that have kind of helped me figure some of this out. One is called Trauma Stewardship, and the other is Parenting from the Inside Out. Both deal in their own way with how to sort of deal with trauma and how to move on and move forward. Trauma Stewardship deals a lot with dealing with other people's trauma, especially if you've had your own trauma, and how to do that in a way that is sustainable. It talks a lot about, making sure that you're okay before you make sure other people are okay. And one of the good lessons from the Parenting from the Inside Out book is it talks a lot about how you tell your own story affects how you move forward in the future. And it's one of the Parenting from the Inside Out book is one of the reasons why I've been doing a lot of journaling, writing all this down so that I can sort of understand my story as I move forward. It's difficult. None of this is easy. But if I'm going to keep fighting, I want to make sure that I am able to do this at my best, which means I'm still going to therapy. I'm still journaling. I am still making sure that I'm taken care of, that my family is taken care of, that I can continue doing this work for as long as it's needed. That isn't something necessarily you can do by yourself. Part of that means finding a community. Part of that means relying on family. Part of that means just figuring out how you're going to pay the bills next month. But there's a lot to this work that people need to understand. It's not easy. It's not gonna be easy. But if we come to this with that understanding that this work is hard, we can give ourselves the tools to move forward in a way that we're gonna outlast them. There are people trying to do a lot of horrible stuff right now, and people accomplishing a lot of horrible stuff right now. And so we need everybody. And that means sometimes the work you're doing is surviving. For me, sometimes waking up the next day, getting out of bed, that's what I'm doing as part of my activism work. Some days if that's all I can accomplish, it's a little tough to deal with understanding that's my mission that day is waking up and moving. So I don't want people to think that every day you have to go out there fighting. Some days it's just survival. But then you do that so that you can get to that point where, yeah, you're going to go out there and you're going to put your body